Good day, grade 12. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today you'll be doing Maths Lit with me, Miss Mathane. I'd like to give a shout out to my learners at Morningside High School in Port Elizabeth. Let me know in the comments below where you're from and where you are watching. Let's get into our lesson. For this lesson, you'll be needing a pen, paper, and a whole lot of positivity. Remember, part of the work is knowing the content. Part is showing up for your exams, but you also need a positive mindset. A positive mindset can really make and break. So, today's topic is a continuation of income tax. If you watched video 1, you would have seen that I went through the 9 steps of income tax. In video 1, I went through step 1, 2, and 3. So, let's do a quick recap for those who didn't have a chance to watch video 1. Income tax is tax applied to employees in South Africa. But you'll see today, later in this video, that not every employee in South Africa has to pay income tax. Who collects income tax? Well, that is SARS, the South African Revenue Services. This is a common question asked in your exams. For example, write out the acronym SARS in full. You would provide the answer South African Revenue Services for an easy peasy 2 marks. As I mentioned in the previous video, we went through the first 3 steps of income tax. First being your annual gross income. With income tax, we want to work with annual values. So anything that is monthly, you must make it annual. How do we do that? Well, we times by 12. Step 2 is annual pension contribution. Once again, it is an annual value. What percentage is contributed towards pension? If you said 7.5%, you are correct. And step 3. Step 3 is a combination of step 1 and 2. You'll take step 1's answer and subtract with your annual pension contribution. Not every question scenario will have annual pension contribution, so it's important that you read your question papers carefully. So, what will we be focusing on today? We will be focusing on step 4, tax thresholds, step 5, tax brackets, and lastly, we'll be integrating step 4 and 5 with the first 3 steps. So, step 4, tax threshold. What is meant by tax threshold? A tax threshold is the minimum amount you must earn to qualify to pay income tax to SARS. Remember, like I emphasized in the first video, vocab counts. It's an easy 2 or 3 marks that you have to secure in your exams. So make sure you know the key vocab in each of your topics. So, what happens if you earn less than the tax threshold? Well, lucky you do not have to pay income tax. On your screens, you'll be seeing an example of a tax threshold table directly taken from the SARS website. If we quickly analyze the table, you will see the first column is for age, and there are 3 different age categories: under 65, 65 and older, and 75 and older. You will also see the tax year is provided on the right hand side, followed by 4 various years. You must make sure you can analyze a tax threshold table successfully. So let's do some practice together. So, question A. Somalezi is a 28-year-old and earns 105,200 Rand in 2024. Does he qualify to pay income tax? So, alarm bells should be going off. If you received a question like this in your exams, the word qualify indicates that we are speaking about tax threshold. You've also been given 3 key factors. We've been given his age, how much he earns, as well as the year. So, Somelezi is 28, so he would fall under the first category, under 65. We've then been told the year. It is 2024. And Somelezi earns 105,200 Rand. So the tax threshold for 2024 for an individual that is under 65 is 95,750 Rand. If we compare this value with Somelezi's income, we can see that Somelezi earns more than the tax threshold. Therefore, he must pay income tax. So once again, Somelezi earns more than the tax threshold, and therefore he must pay income tax over to SARS. Let's move on to Davina. Davina is 67 years old and earned the minimum amount to qualify to pay tax in 2023. What is this amount? So again, we've been given her age. We've been given a year, but we haven't been given how much she earns. So with the information we have, we can see that Davina would be in the second category, 65 and older. We've been given the year 2023. So therefore, Davina earns 141,250 Rand. Lastly, let's move on to Wakiwe. Wakiwe is 42 years old and will earn 355,000 Rand next year. Remember, currently we are in 2024. Does he qualify to pay income tax? So, once again, let's identify the important information. Wakiwe is 42. We've been given his income, and we've been given next year, which would technically mean 2025. So he would fall under the first category, like Somelezi. This time, we would be looking in the first column for next year, which is 2025. And the tax threshold is 95,750 Rand. So, does he qualify? If you said yes, you are correct. His income is way over the tax threshold. Step 5, tax brackets. What is meant by tax bracket? Tax bracket is the rate an individual's annual taxable income falls into. So, remember, annual taxable income is step 3, which was covered in the previous video. You cannot use a tax bracket without having the annual taxable income. Sometimes in your exams, they will ask you to calculate the annual taxable income in a previous question. In other times, in the scenario, they would already say, for example, Mark has an annual taxable income of 560,000 Rand, and therefore you have the information to go straight to the tax brackets. That is why I'm sure your educators emphasize the importance of reading very carefully. Remember, vocab counts, and tax bracket is another vocabulary word that could be examined on. So here is an example of a tax bracket table. Again, it's been directly taken from the SARS website, as SARS is the government institution directly responsible for taxation. As you can see, it is for the 2024 tax year. A tax year is from the 1st of March to the 29th of February for the following year. The first column is where we would find a tax bracket. Even though they are not numbered, you could go ahead and number these yourself. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So in total, this tax bracket table has 7 tax brackets. You will then see in the next side, we have rates of tax. So do not confuse tax brackets and tax rates. If a question asks for a tax bracket, you look in the first column. If a question asks for tax rates, you would look in the second column. Step 5, tax brackets. Let's practice using the table. So question A. Sonobiso earns an annual taxable income of 475,500 Rand. Which tax bracket does he fall into? Take a moment, have a glance at the table, and if you immediately saw that Sonobiso's annual taxable income of 475,500 Rand falls into the third bracket, you would be correct. Well done. Question B. Sachin earns an annual taxable income of 777,890 Rand. Which tax rate would apply? So, if you're reading carefully, you would notice a difference between question A and question B. In question A, it says which tax bracket, and that is why we focused on the first column. However, this question says which tax rate. So, this time, you're going to look into the second column. So, Sachin's annual taxable income is 777,890 Rand. That means he would fall into the 5th tax bracket. However, the answer is the question is asking for the tax rate. Therefore, on your exam paper, you would write out that formula. You don't need to change anything, you write it exactly how it is in the table onto your examination script. So again, you wouldn't provide the tax bracket, you are providing the tax rate. Question C. Akanani's annual taxable income is the maximum value in bracket 4. How much would it be? So, unlike with the first two questions, we haven't been given his annual taxable income value. They want us to go over to the table and find it for ourselves. So, we first locate bracket 4, and we've been told it's the maximum value in that bracket. Therefore, Akanani earns 673,000 Rand per year. Question D. Sikanisile earns an annual taxable income of 1,233,000 Rand. Which tax rate would apply to her income? Emphasis on tax rate. There is no harm at all in you underlining key words and phrases on your examination paper to help you guide yourselves to the correct answer. So, we have her income. So, firstly, she would fall into the 6th tax bracket. But as you would have underlined on your examination paper, we don't want to know the tax bracket. We want to know the tax rate. So, you would go ahead and write out the formula I've just underlined in purple onto your examination page. No calculation is required, you simply write it as is onto your page. Question E. Emishle earns 237,101 Rand. Which tax bracket would she fall into? Maybe if you're rushing and you're a bit stressed in your examination, you would have said bracket 1. However, you need to slow down, take your time and read carefully, because Emishle would actually fall into which bracket? If you said bracket 2, you are correct. If you read carefully, you would have seen that 237,101 Rand falls into tax bracket 2. So, step 5. How do rates of tax work? So, we're going to do an example together. Yonela earns an annual taxable income of 498,400 Rand. Use the table provided to determine her annual tax payable. Please note, we are calculating her annual tax payable before any rebates and medical aid credits. So, let's start by identifying the important information in our questions. We've been given the annual taxable income, so we do not need to calculate her annual gross income or her annual pension contribution. That's been done for us. We can see her annual taxable income is 498,400 Rand. So we're going to take that value and see which tax bracket Yonela falls into. Yonela falls into tax bracket 3. And the corresponding tax rate is the one in the second column that I have underlined. But how do we put this into our calculators? So you will write 77,362 plus 31%, and then I've run out of space, but all together you will open brackets. The brackets are not shown in the table, but you need to know as a mathematical literacy student in grade 12 that you need to open brackets at this point. You will then insert Yonela's annual taxable income. 498,400. In the center of your brackets will always be the subtraction symbol. No addition, no multiplication, no division. Only subtraction happens in that bracket. And what goes at the end? Well, as you can see in the table, we've been given the value 370,500 Rand. And that is the value that will go into our bracket. So you will put all of this into your calculators at the same time. Okay, I hope you had your calculator with you. I've just calculated the answer, so let's check if we get the same answer. I get, remember we are working with money, so we have to indicate the Rand unit. I get 117,011 Rand. So Yonela's annual tax payable before any rebates and medical credits would be 117,011 Rand. Let's practice another question. Akobile earns an annual taxable income of 1,366,250 Rand. Use the table provided to determine her annual tax payable. So again, we're going to identify the important information. The examiners have been kind to us, and they've been kind to us, and they've given us annual taxable income. So again, we don't need to times by 12 or times by 7.5%. We've been given the annual taxable income, so we can head straight to the tax table. We are then told that her annual taxable income is 1,366,250 Rand. So let's see where in the table her annual taxable income falls under. If you said tax bracket 6, you are correct. And once again, we look to our right for the tax rate. So the tax rate I have now underlined in purple. So take a moment, use the example above, and insert the calculation into your calculators. and we will check together if you got the answer right. Okay, let's check our answers together. So, we have 251,258 plus 41%. Remember to put that percentage symbol in or put 41 over 100, otherwise your answer will be wrong. We then insert our Qabila's annual taxable income. We subtract it with the value in the table. And your final answer with the rand unit should be 459,681.50. On your calculators, it will say comma 5, but because it is money, we work with 2 decimal places, so you'll add the 0 to the end. Thank you for joining me with taxation today. Remember, if you want to master your future, you've got to master Maths Lit. Thank you for joining me, Miss Mathayan, on our journey today. Keep well.